We are here with Tom of Foreigner. How are you doing, Tom?
Doing great, Mitch. How's it going?
Great, great. So listen, up until 2013, I had never seen Foreigner live. And then last year I saw you in Montreal. And again this year in February, I saw you in Montreal. And I was blown away. I mean, the band is absolutely fantastic.
Thanks.
You know, your singer, Kelly, is an absolute national treasure. You cannot lose him. He has got to stay in that band forever.
I sure hope so. I hope that happens because we're just couldn't be happier to see the way he connects with the audience. You know, the look on the audience face is like, we've never really had this happen before. It's completely uncharted territory. And he's just rewriting the book. I mean, he talks to every single person like he knows them, like you're familiar with them. You're part of his family. Yeah. And it's really nice. It adds a personal touch to it. It's not, just us here and you're over there. There's no wall in between. He's out there dancing with people, sharing their drinks, kissing girls, body surfing. The other night we look over and they're just holding him up in the air and he's kind of pointing like which direction he wants to go. Crowd surfing, is that what you call it? Crowd surfing.
Yeah, I mean, he did that in Montreal in February. He just started walking over the seats and taking selfies, as everybody likes to call it, with people. It was the most outrageous thing, but more importantly, his voice just suits the music.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes. That's the starting point. I think that's why people love him right out of the gate, because he's singing these songs to perfection, and it's an inhuman task. You're absolutely right. We say that about him. Like, he's not from this planet. No. You cannot just sing those songs and go, yeah, no big deal. It is a big deal. And the fact that he does it flawlessly night after night is just nothing short of astonishing. And you throw the showmanship on top of that, you got the real deal, complete package.
Yeah, well, let's talk about a complete package. This summer you're going out with Styx and, of course, Don Felder, formerly of the Eagles. Let's talk about that package. Now, it's a co-headline because you're swapping in and out, right? Some nights you close, some nights Styx closes.
Uh-huh.
Right.
That's right. So just to touch about, I got to say, Don Felder is the most amazing guitar player you'd ever want to see, so people need to know that.
Yeah. Well, he's
too good. He shouldn't be allowed to be that good. That's the way we feel about it.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. So what are the fans going to see on this tour? Is it just a night of just nothing but hits?
Well, hopefully nobody will get hit, One of the things I like about rock concerts is not like a football game where you have one side wins and one side loses. Hopefully everybody wins, except the guy that drinks too much and falls asleep and wakes up after it's over. I think that it's going to be everyone's trying to bring their A game to the table. There's also a healthy competition that goes on between bands, so we're going to try and kick Styx ass, and they're going to try and kick ours. That's just the way it goes.
It's certainly going to make for a great evening for fans. And I also want to talk about the soundtrack of summer compilation that comes out exclusively at Walmart. Are the songs that are on there the old Foreigner versions, or is this the new band that we're going to hear?
Which songs?
You've got Cold of Ice, Hot Blooded, Urgent. Are these remakes with the current lineup?
Oh, you mean on the album?
Right.
If you're looking at, it depends which disc you're looking at. What do we got going?
Well, I'm looking at the track listing for the soundtrack of Summer Tour album, which is coming out. It's coming out in a month or less than a month now. Do you know if they're remakes, or are these sort of the catalog versions that they pulled off the old albums?
No, I'm assuming that's coming from our album, which was called Jukebox Heroes. That's when we redid those classics in the studio.
Okay, that's what I was wondering.
And then there's a couple of compilation where everyone got together from the three different bands.
Right.
I don't know if it lists that, like Hotel California. Everybody has a little segment from all the three different bands. Pretty cool.
Right. Well, that was the thing.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you about that. Don redid the song with you guys. So you've got Tommy playing on it, and you've got who else is playing on that? Tommy Shaw's playing on everybody. I mean, all three of you guys are together.
Oh, Mick Jones. Yeah,
Mick Jones.
You got Mick Jones there. Sure.
That's a fun.
Yeah, it's the hybrid Styx Foreigner Don Felder experience.
It's a great version. And Hotel California is a classic song to start off with.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It sets the tone.
Now I do want to look a little bit back in your history. Years and years ago, 20 years ago, you were on the road with this American band that probably nobody's ever heard of called Aerosmith. How was it? Yeah. Oh yeah. How was it touring with Aerosmith back in the late 80s and early 90s, keeping in mind that they had broken up, they had all kinds of drug problems, they got back together. What was the vibe on the road with that band at the time?
It was tremendous. They were actually in the Phoenix. You know, they had risen up again. Right. Like the second time they had climbed out of the rut. Remember they had that album called Night in the Ruts? They climbed out of the ruts and they were back on top again. This was when the album
Permanent Vacation.
Yeah.
Well, they went from the ruts to the Permanent Vacation. You didn't play on Permanent. You weren't on the Permanent Vacation tour.
Right after that.
You started with.
It was right after that.
So you started with Punk.
After that. So we were still playing those songs. We were still playing those songs live. Ragdoll. A lot of them had that great shuffly kind of bluesy swing and swagger to them. A song called Hangman Jury. Oh, the chocolate. You know, it was really cool.
That was great.
So those songs were great when we did them unplugged. It was one of the first unplugs for MTV. And so we still did those songs in the show, and it was all the great new stuff. Hot wax dripping honey, what do you say? You know, it was just a marvelous time. They were clean and sober. They were healthy. They were so into fitness and working out. I went to see Steven at his house and we could do vocal exercise, and he said, let's go for a jog. And I was like, okay. We started jogging. He goes, now let's do the vocal exercise. I said, you can't run and sing at the same time. He goes, welcome to my world. And if you look at the video from 89 and 90, it's true. He never stopped moving. I used to watch him go right back and forth, just side to side on the stage like a whirling dervish, spinning, singing at the same time. It was insane. So I really felt like they were top of their game, you know. Joe Perry was just the coolest ever, obviously.
Yeah, you know, I must have seen that tour and then the tour right after with Get a Grip, probably 10 times each kind of thing. I mean, it was just a phenomenal time. If you can, and I know it's an unfair question, but can you sort of give me the pros and cons of Joe Perry versus Mick Jones? Like, what makes them great at what they do, and sort of how do you compare and contrast Joe versus Mick?
Well, you know, we're talking about like iconic players and you know, people at the top of the world class. What I notice is a lot of similarities when you get to people on that level. And this is Steven and Joe and Mick and Lou. I notice a lot of similarities. And what it boils down to is an innate sense of musicianship that I notice. These guys, they know what's right. They know what to leave out and they know what to leave in. They just have a natural ability to know that. And I think that's what sets them apart from, you know, almost everyone else. So I see a lot of similarities. And as far as my interaction with them, what I noticed in Aerosmith and Foreigner, they were interested in bringing the most out. They never wanted to paint me into a corner and say, just do this. They wanted to get as much out and see you flourish, you know. In Foreigner, I remember Mick and Lou saying, take that saxophone and tear the roof off this house. And just, if we like what you're doing, we're going to tell you, go around again. You know, I'd be wailing this solo. I'd be, they'd say, go around again. So there was never a restriction. It was, you know, an encouragement and enhancement, you know. And in Aerosmith, Joey Kramer said, do you want to do a funky thing with like sax and drums, like Tower of Power? And I said, yeah, I do. You know, so if you saw the tour, you saw that.
I did.
And it was marvelous. Yeah, Tom Hamilton would be playing this funky bass line. We'd go, it was very Tower Power. And Joey Kramer just said, I love Tower Power and I want to do something like it. Will you do it with me? And I was like, oh, but you just twist my arm a little bit. Okay, all right. I'll do it.
By the way, you mentioned Tom Hamilton. He's definitely one of the most underrated bass players. He's not flashy. He's not like Gene Simmons with the tongue and the paint, but he just has a groove that he's just a foundation to every song. I mean, he's, just listen to what he does on Sweet Emotion, for example, right? I mean,
absolutely right. Very musical too.
Yeah.
Very musical. He knows how to use the full range of the bass. You won't see him just staying down low, and you won't see him just only playing up high. He's constantly going between the two. And I think that could be, part of the magic of their flavor of sound, of rock sound, is it's not just rooted in low bass notes, which is something that I always have loved, like bands like Cream, the early rock bands, Cream, and even Jethro Tull, they would have those bass lines that were up there kind of playing a different note than everyone else. I love that sound, and that's very much a part of the sound of Aerosmith.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, let's talk about the sound of Foreigner. You're in charge of rhythm guitar, keyboards, sax, flute. I think you play the triangle. No, I'm kidding. But
we do a lot of singing.
You do a lot of singing. You do a lot of stuff on stage. How do you prepare yourself for a show? And what's the toll physically? I mean, to come out and just sort of, use just your fingers on the guitar is one thing, but now you're doing wind instruments. Are you the most tired at the end of the night compared to anybody else in that band?
I don't know. Maybe mentally tired, but it doesn't feel that way. We've been doing it for so many years. Bouncing around between instruments has its pros and cons, because on the one hand, you're always on your toes. You can't just get into a groove and stay there. I'm shifting gears. You're right. That is a bit of a challenge. So it takes some concentration. I really have to snap my head around, just grab the sax, get it warmed up in about 45 seconds or a minute, and then hit the stage and play urgent. That is a challenge every night. So in order to prepare for that, I might get a chance to warm up a little bit before the show. Sometimes I don't. We get there late, and I never have a chance. So the first time I touch the sax is basically 60 seconds before the song starts. It's kind of like throwing yourself in the deep end to see if you can swim. It never gets boring, that's for sure.
do you ever get tripped up? Do you ever reach for that other guitar and then it's like, oh shoot, I'm supposed to be reaching for the saxophone?
Oh, once in a blue moon, if you misread the set list, sure. But someone will always just kind of point you in the right direction or give you the right guitar and say, yeah, trust me, this is the right way to go. Okay, cool.
Foreigner, the songs are enduring. What makes the songs so special? Why do you think they've connected with an audience? And even though you've changed members and stuff, the songs still bring the fans out. What makes them so special?
Well, for one thing, there's nothing like a live concert. We talked about, you could have the biggest screen TV. You can have a theater in your house, a full 400-seat theater with a big screen and the best stereo on the face of the earth. It's not even close to what a real concert sounds like. So there's a lot of magic right there in the sound. The other thing is that the interaction between the band and the audience cannot be duplicated. Even with a hologram, people say, oh, well, you could just have the hologram, Stones will be right in your living room. But they won't be interacting with you. So this is the part of the magic of a live show. I think that's why people come out, because there's no other place that happens. It just doesn't occur anywhere else. So to see that, you have to be there. And as far as the songs lasting and resonating, I think it's because they hit people on an emotional level and a physical level. When we're talking about good rock music, we're talking about drums that were played extremely well, and world-class production and performance, on top of which you've got this masterpiece of a song that was crafted by award-winning songwriters, in the Hall of Fame of songwriting. So this is a lot of things working together to give you this complete hybrid. It's like an amalgamation of elements. I think about the rock being at the base of it, a very almost British sound of a rock band, and then a lot of the vocals have this kind of bluesy rocks, R&B flavored singing over the top. So that's a kind of a unique combination, and it really works well. And now we've got these lyrics that were heartfelt, really, I think Mick has told us before that he wrote a song once and he was in tears while he was writing it. I mean, he puts that kind of emotion into the writing. He doesn't just spew them out. This is a real world-class craftsman at songwriting, gifted songwriter, artist. So there you have this potpourri, this this wonderful combination, a bouillabaisse of ingredients that give you the songs that I think the combination of which why they have stood the test so well. The time test.
Yeah, so the time test. And of course, you've got Jeff Pilson, who came over from Doc, and who's, years ago, like 15 years. He is just fantastic.
He is tremendous, and he's now a 10-year guy now. And so we've gotten to know each other very well. And Kelly, 9 years, and it's really turned into a great musical family. I love these guys. I love working with them, and Mick has set such a great example that it's kind of easy to follow.
What is the status of Mick in the band? I mean, I've seen 2 shows and he wasn't there. Now, he was sick and he was taking sort of a leave of absence. Is he going to be there throughout the summer tour, or is it sort of like depending on his health?
I think so. Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's people ask us. I mean, it's not like he knows. He doesn't really know until he sees how he feels. But in general, he's doing great. He's tanned. He's rested. He's ready to rock.
Okay, great. Good.
He loves these. Yeah, he loves these summer tours. So we'll be seeing a lot of them.
Good. I certainly hope so. And I'll ask you just one last question, and it's just going to go back to the Aerosmith days, if you don't mind. At the time, they had a manager called Tim Collins, and the way it ended with Aerosmith wasn't very, nice.
Oh boy, that was a long time ago. You're right. Yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah, we're because the rumor or the word on the street, for the lack of a better word, was that he was sort of a dictator, and he was telling you what you could have backstage and what you couldn't, and it was all about this alcohol and no drugs. And were you sensing any tension back in the day, or you were, because you're not really in the band, you never really sort of noticed any of it?
I mean, you're talking about the stuff that was going on internally with them. I would certainly know about it peripherally.
Peripherally? That's
peripheral. I'm not going to get that. I'll let you say that for me.
Peripherally?
But from the outside, yes, thank you. From the outside looking in, I knew about it. And then there were rules. It was a time when they were clean and sober, and
right.
Certain tours are like that. You're not allowed to drink or do drugs on your work days. On your days off, you're sort of on your own. But when you're at your workplace, you're not supposed to drink or do drugs, and that was fair enough. It actually kind of set a nice, healthy tone. There was a lot of carrot juice and wheatgrass, and the Aerosmith guys. But we had weights backstage. We were lifting weights and everything. It was wild.
Yeah.
But I think the problem that happened between those guys was more. Certainly deeper than that. Okay. I don't think that was part of the tension at all. It had to do with other things. And so it unraveled the way it did, and it was unfortunate that it did seem a bit messy. I'm sure Stephen tells the whole story in his book.
Right.
So, people want to know what happened. It's all there. But it was just unfortunate that it did not end on a better note. And I think at that point they just moved on and never looked back, and they seem a lot more relaxed these days.
Yeah, they really do, and hopefully they'll come out with some new music, and I know they're doing a few shows this summer, but hopefully they'll do a lot more. Music.
I love the last album. There's really cool stuff on the album they just did.
Yeah, which I have right in front of me actually. Music from Another Dimension. They they did that song with Carrie Underwood. It was a good album. It was certainly a lot better than that Just Push Play album, but let's not get into bad-mouthing. Let's not get into bad-mouthing people or albums.
If you want to stop the tape.
I'll stop the tape after one last question. New Foreigner music other than, like a new album at any point with new songs coming out?
I think there'll be some new material. You never know what form it'll take.
Okay.
I'm not sure it'll be a full album. What do they have to do? 14 songs on an album nowadays?
Yeah.
And I don't think anyone really views it as necessary because they're going to throw them up on the internet. People are going to click on the samples and pick the ones they like. So you shouldn't feel pressured to do 12 or more songs. So I think, there's a good chance we may do a song or two or three. You never know if it'll end up in a movie or a soundtrack. And I think Mick he's one of those songwriters that, what do they say, a writer writes.
Yeah.
It's just like me being a player, I have to play music. I don't have a choice in the matter. I think for him, it's like he has to write music because he's who he is. So that's probably never going to stop. And we love it because, he's always got something cooking. He's always got like this batch of stuff cooking. And we just have to wait and see how it finds its way out.
Yeah, no, I'm getting a sense from speaking to other artists that the album as an art form is sort of an outdated mode. It's sort of like, beta tape or VHS. It had its purpose and everybody loves it. But I think we're moving on. I think we're at 3-song EPs or 1-song singles.
Yeah.
And,
yeah.
Which is too bad.
Yeah,
it's too bad.
It's great. It's just a changing landscape in the music world, and we adapt to change. I don't think it ever makes sense to fight against change. You have to, for me, I always feel like I have to embrace it.
Yeah.
So I like it.
I was given 15 minutes. We've way past that, but let's just remind the folks.
No problem.
Soundtrack of summer.
On there.
Yeah. Soundtrack of Summer Tour with Styx and Don Felder, and of course the Soundtrack of Summer album, which is coming out in May at Walmart exclusively. Tom, it's always a pleasure.
Yeah.
Just wanted to thank you, and I'll turn off this tape for those Aerosmith stories now.